Everyone. Would you stay standing while my brother and our friend Mahmoud Mansour offers the Muslim call to prayer this morning?
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. God is the greatest. Allah is the greatest. Allah is the greatest. I bear witness that there is no God worthy of worship but Allah. I bear witness that there is no God worthy of worship but Allah. And I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. Come to the prayer. Come to the prayer. Come to success. Come to success. God, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allah is the greatest. Allah is the greatest. There is no God worthy of worship but Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and peace be upon all of you. Thank you.
Let us continue in a spirit of prayer. We come before you this morning, O God, bearing witness, as Brother Mahmoud demonstrated, that there is but one God at work in us, in our common humanity, and across our traditions and faith practices. God, you call us to transcend barriers of nation, of class, and of tradition, that we might see the humanity of all your children. You call us toward greater responsibility before those who suffer injustice. And you move us ever closer to a spirit of mercy, to a spirit of compassion, and to a spirit of humility, O Lord. Open us now to all you would have us hear today. Break open our hearts that your light may flood in. And may we continually be a people of prayer, using the words that Jesus taught to his disciples, saying together, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. You may at last be seated. Let me say thank you to Mahmoud for that beautiful call to prayer. You do us great honor by being with us today. Thank you, Mahmoud. Well, good morning to all of you, and welcome to this very, very special service that we have planned for you today. Wherever you happen to be on life's way, whatever you happen to be carrying with you in your heart this morning, simply know that we value you. We don't take your presence for granted, and we value wherever you happen to be. But I'm so glad that you happen to be here at this particular moment. Well, we haven't been able to do this, a service like this, since 2019. It has been 3 years. But today is the occasion for a celebration of sorts because we are once again able to host the Tree of Life Sunday in our morning service. Most of you know what I'm talking about when I talk about the Tree of Life, but in case you don't, the Tree of Life grew out of this congregation's conviction more than 20 years ago now that we needed to be more intentional about reaching out to our Muslim neighbors and responding to the humanity and the human rights of those who are too often ignored or misunderstood in our narratives about the Middle East. In particular, that has to do with listening to voices of conscience from those in Palestine, but also in Israel and elsewhere, who are seeking to draw attention to the lives of those living in the occupied territories of Palestine. And so today we have a number of very special guests that I would like to welcome, beginning first with Gufran Al-Ababidi, who serves as our Tree of Life president. Gufran, it is always good to have you with us, and it is especially good to have you here today on this occasion. Thanks for being here. Along with Gufran, I would like to give a special welcome to our 4 guests who join us from different places from around the world. Dalia and Sadek are here behind me. They are from the occupied city of Hebron. Dalia, Sadek, it is an honor to have you with us today. Thank you for being here, all the way from Palestine. Good. Welcome to our service. Mela, right now is living in Amsterdam, and she joins us from that city. And so, Mela, we welcome you as well. It is a great honor to have you here in this space with us. And Melissa is also living in Hebron living in Philadelphia at the moment, but doing work on behalf of those living in Hebron, working with the community peacemaker teams in that city. Melissa, you too do us honor by joining us here in our service today. Let me just say parenthetically that Melissa also once taught at a tiny little college extension program out in Oregon called the Oregon Extension that has had this outsized impact on my own theology and on my own thinking over the years. It occupies a mythic place in my imagination, and it has shaped me more than 10 years of graduate study, more than 10 years of teaching. I was never even a student there. And so, Melissa, for that reason, too, know that it's a particular joy to welcome you. There's going to be a forum after the service today in the fellowship hall, along with a bazaar of Middle Eastern food and art, and I hope all of you, hear that? All of you will stay for that. it is an opportunity to hear just a little bit more from our guests today and to learn more about ways that we might get involved in promoting justice and peace in the Middle East. Let me offer a word of thanks to all of those who have helped to organize the bazaar, including the food. I understand there is a lot of food, which means, again, you must come to do your part. So please stick around after the service. And at this point, I'd like to hand things off to my good friend, David Good, who will orient us a little bit further to our service this morning. In addition to being our senior minister emeritus, David is the founder of our Tree of Life ministry, and he continues to serve as its executive director. David is a friend to many of us in this congregation, but that is especially true for me. He has been a friend and more. He has been a trusted mentor, a wisdom keeper, a source of encouragement, and a model for what ministry might look like at its very, very best. And so, David, it is a pleasure and a joy to welcome you to the pulpit this morning and to hand things over to you. I hereby hand you the baton.
Good morning, everyone. And many thanks to my friend Steve for his gracious and kind introduction this morning. Well, it's wonderful, and I also want to thank you for your wonderful hospitality for our Tree of Life community. As Steve mentioned, it's been a little while since we've been able to do this, so it's great to have our reunion back in the place we all began with our Tree of Life ministry. So thank you for being here today. This is the not the last event, but nearing the end of a week-long series called Tree of Life. And it started a week ago on Sunday. We were at St. Peter's Lutheran Church. I never remember whether you pronounce it Harwich or Harwich. Depends on whether you're in England or not. But we had a wonderful gathering there, and the woman who made that all possible is here with us this morning, Elaine Brillard. She and her husband Jack drove all the way from Cape Cod to be with us today. And Elaine serves as our wonderful treasurer for Tree of Life. So thank you for all the work you do, and thank you for being here this morning. And then from there, our group went into a community church in Boston. And then from there came back to Connecticut for a number of different activities. On Wednesday night, we were at the Islamic Center of Greater Hartford at the Berlin Mosque. And then on Thursday, thanks to Gufran's leadership, we were at the Tunxis Community College, meeting with a number of students there. And then on Friday, we had a wonderful gathering at the Farmington Valley Islamic Center, the Farmington Valley Mosque. And I'm sure I'm forgetting something else. And Saturday, I'll talk about a little bit more about that later. We were up in Amherst, Massachusetts. You'll see why in a moment. And then later today, we'll be at the Palestine Museum. And if you haven't been there, I encourage you to go there. It's down in Woodbridge, not far from New Haven. And then we have a new program that we just learned about that will be at Central Connecticut State University. That'll be tomorrow night. So it's been quite a week, and many thanks to all the volunteers, and many thanks to all of you that support this Tree of Life ministry. On our annual Tree of Life journeys, I visited Hebron, and the Arabic word for Hebron is Al-Khalil, and we visited that city on many occasions. We've driven through the large Israeli settlement known as Kiryat Arba. We visited the Ibrahimi Mosque, where we were reminded of how on February the 25th, 1994, Dr. Baruch Goldstein, a U.S. citizen from Brooklyn, New York, burst into the mosque and opened fire on those at prayer. 29 men and young boys were killed, and in retaliation, Dr. Goldstein himself was killed. We walked down Shahada Street, and there we saw a sign that said, "There never was and never will be a Palestine," a sign put up by the settlers. We walked down ancient streets, and we have seen the once proud, vibrant bazaar, now closed off with shops boarded up. And we have learned how settlers throw bricks, garbage, and dirty diapers on the Palestinians walking below. We've also seen beautiful remnants of what the city used to be. We've marveled at glass-blowing factories where beautiful cobalt blue vases are still created. The craftsmanship has made Hebron glass famous throughout the world. With the help of a friend, we now have a Bedouin tent made in Hebron out of camel's hair. You'll see it in our fellowship room when you come down for the reception. We use the tent, as many of you know, for our church's annual Christmas pageant. It serves as a reminder of the Bedouin culture and the hospitality of the Palestinian people. For over 18 years, Hebron, or Al-Khalil, has been an essential but challenging part of our Tree of Life itinerary. More than any other place we have visited, it has helped us to see the pain and the cruelty of the Israeli version of settler colonialism, how cruel theologies of entitlement have driven the madness of the settlers in that particular area. But also, it has helped us to see the tenacity and the resilience of the Palestinians who live there. However, it wasn't until very recently that I came to realize that Hebron is home to one of the most important and powerful of our biblical stories. The story of Abram, later to be known as Abraham, who found shelter in a tent in the shade of a giant oak tree. The oak tree of Mamre. The oak tree of Mamre is now little more than a dead tree waiting to be cut up as firewood. Situated within the monastery of the Russian Orthodox Church, the remnants of the tree are a reminder of how Abram pitched his tent in the shade of that oak tree of Mamre, where he welcomed 3 strangers who turned out to be angels. Thus, in the letter to the Hebrews, as you may recall, we find those words of wisdom that we need to welcome strangers, for in doing so, we may be entertaining angels unawares. Now, how does a place with such a sacred story become a place now known for its xenophobia and violence? Is there hope for such a place? Though declared dead in 1996, in 1997, surprisingly, a root sprout began to appear. Perhaps this is suggestive. Perhaps it's not too late for the oak tree of Mamre. Perhaps it's not too late for the sacred gift of our sacred stories that remind us of our true humanity, our capacity for kindness and hospitality. Perhaps it's not too late to overcome the fears that so divide our human family. Perhaps it's not too late for us to sit in the shade of the oak tree of Mamre, wherever it may be, and think about ways in which we can restore the harmony and the interrelatedness of all creation. I think of this church as being one of those root sprouts, an offshoot of the oak tree of Mamre. Sitting, as I usually do, way in the back pew, time and time again, I've seen this church exemplify what that means. In buying a refugee house near Rogers Lake, thanks to the leadership of this church, refugee families from Syria, Afghanistan, the Congo, and Puerto Rico have found a warm welcome, and as many of you can attest, and in doing so, we have welcomed strangers unawares. We have welcomed angels unawares. Drive by the corner of Lime Street and Ferry Road, and you'll see our food pantry hard at work. Thanks to the rooms at our parish house, food and diapers are provided to families in need. But I remind you, it almost did not happen. I repeat, it almost did not happen. When we built the new parish house in the early 1990s, in order to get the approval of various town boards and commissions, someone let it be known that we would have a better chance for approval if we signed a promise, if we signed a covenant that we would only use the new building for quote-unquote church-related activities, unquote. Our very own lawyer urged us to sign such a covenant. And I'm so very, very proud of our Board of Trustees who refused to compromise the mission and the integrity of our church. That's what it means to be the oak tree of Mamre. By this, we should remember that the ministries of hospitality are never a done deal. We're all doorkeepers in the house of the Lord, and it requires us all to be ever so vigilant, to make sure the doors remain wide open. For surely every bad decision is like a chainsaw on the oak tree of memory. I'm so enormously grateful to Steve, Laura, and Carlene, and the lay leadership of our church who unfailingly, without restraint, exemplify what it means to be that oak tree of memory. At a time when so-called illegal immigrants suffered from deportation, this church boldly declared itself a sanctuary, a place where those threatened with deportation could find a shelter. Every week in our bulletin, you'll find our welcome statement, and on the inside wall of our vestibule, you'll see that same statement framed by 2 pineapples, symbols of hospitality. And by the way, those pineapples are made out of Palestinian olive wood, carved by one of our Tree of Life friends in the community of Bet Zahor. All this leads me to be confident that you will join me in welcoming our visitors this morning, Dahlia, Sadek, Melissa, and Mela. Mela is a graduate student studying philosophy at the University of Amsterdam. I first learned about her through an outstanding article she wrote for the online publication entitled Mondoweiss, the article entitled Illegal Kings on Palestinian Land. Melissa is the care coordinator for the Community Peacemaker Teams, an organization that makes it possible for international volunteers to stand and walk with courage and solidarity, especially with children on the way to school. We first met Dahlia a couple of years ago when she was an ambassador of Bethlehem University. With her entrepreneurial skills and her beautiful spirit, she works as a public relations director for Hebron's Expo. Dahlia, it's wonderful to welcome you back once again. Sadek also lives in Hebron and just recently graduated from the University of Hebron. We first met Sadek through the Hebron Soup Kitchen that Tree of Life tries to support. As an English literature major, Sadek made my day a couple of weeks ago when in a WhatsApp communication, which is how we communicate back and forth, he said that while he is here, he'd love to be able to visit the home of his favorite poet. You know who that was? Emily Dickinson. You can only imagine how elated I was to receive that request, and just yesterday, on that beautiful day, we had the pleasure of visiting Emily's home in Amherst, Massachusetts. Sadek, the next time you are here, we'll split some firewood and recite some Robert Frost. Please join me in welcoming all of our visitors. In doing so, I'm quite sure that we will be entertaining angels unawares. Thank you.
Well, thank you, David. I'm going to ask us to rise and join in singing our next hymn, 505. But while we get ready to do that, let me thank our deacons, Amy Cabanis and Ellen Calkins and Dave Roberts. Our ushers, those folks plus Henry May and Sharon Howell and Diane Clausen have organized all the food after the service, so thanks to them. But thanks to all of you for being here. Let's rise and join in singing hymn number 505.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming here today, and it's my pleasure to represent my city, Hebron, and talk about the actual suffering of the people of my city that is located in southern of Palestine. But first of all, I would like to ask you a question. What does Hebron mean in English? Does anyone know? All right. Hebron means friendship, and in Arabic means Al-Khalil. So today my presentation will be about Al-Khalil. Well, I would like to start my presentation today to speak about the Ibrahimi Mosque, that is symbol for the three Abrahamic faith and the fourth holiest place for Muslims around the world. As we all can see here in the picture, 4000 BC, Prophet Abraham built a cave for his wife Sarah to bury her there. And later on, Prophet Abraham with his sons and with their wives were buried there too. So, the Ibrahimi Mosque was built above the cave, and there is no clear proof that of the date of the mosque establishment. Okay, and then I would like to add that Al-Ibrahimi Mosque went throughout many eras, and he suffered through many eras until today. The Ibrahimi Mosque massacre. As we all see here in the picture, this man, his name is Dr. Baruch Goldstein. He is an American citizen, moved to Hebron, and one day, on 25th February 1994, on the holy month of Ramadan, he decided to open fire on worshippers who were praying in the Ibrahimi Mosque on Friday. And he killed 29 Palestinians and wounded 150 Palestinians, unfortunately. But as a result, he was killed in return. The consequences of this horrifying massacre, one, call for prayer. Call for prayer is banned. Two, mosque has separated into two parts, 60% for Israeli Jew and 40% for Muslims. Three, dozens of military checkpoints. Each time me, my family, my friends decide to pray in the Ibrahimi Mosque, we have to pass through many checkpoints. As you see here in the picture, this is one of the checkpoints that we pass through until arrive the Ibrahimi Mosque. And when we pass these checkpoints, they check our bags, they ask for our IDs, and then they allow us to pray in the Ibrahimi Mosque. Also, the Ibrahimi Mosque, inside, outside, and around the Ibrahimi Mosque, there is many of the surveillance cameras. And four, Hebron Protocol. Hebron Protocol, it is an agreement between Palestinian Authority and Israeli government. It says that Hebron divided into two areas. Each one area, it is fully under Palestinian control, and in the yellow here, as you see in the map, H2 area, it is under the military control. So my whole presentation will be about H2 area, which is under the Israeli military control. Settlers' behavior. All right, in H2 area, as we all know, there is many settlements there, and absolutely there is settlers are living there. So settlers are given the green light to do harassments for women, for kids, for everyone who is living there or passing there. So they do some harassment to us. Also, they are under protection of IOF. IOF, it is Israeli Occupation Forces. And as we know, that H2 area, it is under the Israeli military control. That means they must protect Palestinians and settlers. But unfortunately, they don't do that. They only protect settlers and they don't protect Palestinians there. Also, the entire streets, such as Al-Shuhada Street, closed, and 1,800 of shops are closed by military orders. Also, many of 1,400 families abandoned their homes, fearing for their lives. So the Israeli settler, the IUF, stole their homes, and some families they forced to leave their homes because if they don't leave their homes, the IUF will arrest them and will kill them, unfortunately. That's why we call H2 area the ghost town. Me, I feel afraid going there alone. My parents do not allow me to go there and walk alone. They tell me, Dalia, if you would like to visit the Ibrahimi Mosque, if you would like to visit the old town of Hebron, you have to go with the groups. You have to go with NGOs because they will protect you. Okay, so me, I was a volunteer in Red Crescent Society, so I was going with them to the old town of Hebron, and we were trying to make lives there and by doing some activities for children and for women. All right, as we see here in the map, this is the map of H2 area. Okay, and it is shown where is exactly located the Ibrahimi Mosque. And Hebron is the only city in Palestine that has in its heart settlement. We have 21 settlement in Hebron. Also, we have 21,000 settlers are living inside, outside, and all around Hebron, the lands that belong to Hebron. Also, as you see here, Bet Romano settlement, it was a school, and after this horrifying massacre, it turned out to be a settlement. And there is also Bet Hadassah settlement. I don't know if you see it. All right, it is the first settlement in Hebron. So, despite all the pain, at the end of the day, there is always hope and there is always light at the end of the tunnel. So, allow me to quote Emily Dickinson, "Hope is the thing with feather that perches in the soul and sings the tone without the words and never stops at all," which is why, which is why I would like to inform you that Hebron is considered to be the economic capital for Palestine, and it has one of non-charitable taqiyya, which is Sadiq is going to elaborate. But before my Sadiq is going to elaborate, I would like to say that we have many factories in Palestine, such as Kufiyya factory. I'm wearing Kufiyya, which is from the Hebron factory. It is located in Hebron since many, many years, and Tree of Life bringing this Kufiyya here to the church. Also, we have ceramic factory. This ceramic factory that symbol Hebron, Palestine, and it's really, really amazing in Palestine. So thank you all, and please, Sadiq, go ahead and elaborate the audience here about the taqiyya. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dalia. Hello, everyone. My name is Sadiq, and I'm really delighted to be here today. I do feel that at home, so thank you for your warm greetings and thanks for your hospitality. Well, as a graduate English literature student, there is a statement that I always say, and I would like to begin with. It says, "Some stories deserve to be popular novels, and today's story is one of them." Since I was a child, I always wondered why my grandpa has been taking food such as bread, oil, or other stuff every Saturday to the place I'll talk about. As a kid, there was always kind of feeling pushing me to discover what's going on. I really detested going with them, grabbing and holding all these heavy materials. Finally, for me being a curious kid, it's been so touching to see and to discover that my grandpa has been helping feed the poor and needy people in his community. I always felt proud of him and myself. So frankly speaking, my grandpa made that place an essential part of my life as a Palestinian from Hebron. The place is one of the most non-charitable organizations, which is the Taqiyya of the Prophet Abraham, the soup kitchen, that has such an impressive story. Why is it named as such? It's named as such after the Prophet Abraham, who's known for his generosity and the fact that he gave a hand to all needy people. So the principles of the Taqiyya are inspired by the traits of the Prophet Abraham. Its establishment. The Taqiyya, the soup kitchen, went through 3 phases in terms of its location. So it was originally located and founded 950 years ago during the era of the Islamic leader Saladin in Palestine. So it was exactly near the Ibrahimi Mosque. It consisted of 40 rooms. It offered 3 meals a day, including breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It included a bakery, baking more than 15,000 loaves of bread, a meal, and rooms for visitors to have rest and sleep there. It had been serving people until 1964, before it was demolished to expand the space around the Ibrahimi Mosque. The second location was directly built far away the Ibrahimi Mosque, yet it was smaller and never adequate to meet the needs and provide services as it used to. In order to serve more people, in 1984, the third location was built near the Ibrahimi Mosque again, with a bigger building and better services. Its services. Well, to get a closer look on how the Taqiyya, the soup kitchen, works, I thought that the best way is to interview one of its workers. So I would like to quote Abu Hassan. Abu Hassan has been working there for 21 years in the Taqiyya. He stated that, "My colleagues and I work year-round to kindly serve all people who are in need. The Taqiyya, the soup kitchen, offers the Ibrahimi soup 5 times a week and main meals twice a week, such as chicken, meat, or other delicious meals." You know the idiom in English that says, "An apple a day keeps doctors away"? I created my own to suit this Taqiyya. It says, "A meal per day, hunger goes away." Because of the Taqiyya, Hebron is considered to be the city while nobody, like literally nobody, sleeps while being hungry. In my interview with Abu Hassan, he told me that around 2,000 to 8,000 people get their food from the Taqiyya of the Prophet Abraham, and in Ramadan, the number is always doubled. Most importantly, it's also worthy to elaborate about the vital role of the Taqiyya in the revival of the Old Town. Because, imagine if there was no Taqiyya. These thousands of people might have never walked in or visited the Old Town. Because of this major role, in 2017, the Israeli occupation wanted to get rid of the Taqiyya and uprooted it while it was revered. But their efforts were in vain, because of the resistance of the Taqiyya workers who maintained providing all needed supplies. Also, for me, the most impressive moment when Abu Hassan told me that so many donors who support the Taqiyya excessively were broke in the past, lived and relied on the Taqiyya just like my grandpa. Which is why I feel that the Taqiyya of the Prophet Abraham is so unique. Therefore, all needy and poor people know that once their financial status get better, they're going to go back and aid the place that fed them at some point of their lives. How does the Taqiyya get funded? Well, Whatever food is provided is due to the charity and donations that the Taqiyya, the soup kitchen, has been receiving since it was established. Because the soup kitchen mainly depends on the donations from inside and outside the country to maintain and carry out its continuous duty of serving and assisting whoever needs it. 60% of the Taqiyya expenses are covered by the people of the city of Hebron, and the rest is donated by other Palestinians, tourists, or organizations such as the Tree of Life Educational Fund that has been providing the financial and moral support to the Taqiyya through its continuous and constant visits to the Taqiyya. And let me tell you that all the beautiful and great things I shared with you might have never occurred without the generosity and kind-hearted people just like you. And this has just reminded me of some of the poetic lines of my favorite poet, who's Emily Dickinson, apparently. She said, "If I can stop one heart from breaking, I shall not live in vain. If I can ease one life the aching, or cool one pain, or help one faint and robin unto his nest again, I shall not live in vain." Thank you. Hope you enjoyed my presentation.
Thank you, Sadek and Dalia. It is a joy to have you with us today. Writes the mystic Meister Eckhart, "If the only prayer you ever say in your entire life is thank you, it will be enough." So now is the time for our offering. Please give as you are able. Let us give generously so that we may have hope and that love may continue to abound. Shukran, gratias, toda, grazie, thank you. The offering will now be gathered. Please be seated. Spirit of hope, we join with you in partnership. You, O God, give us life and breath. You fill the world with beauty, our hands with bounty, and our hearts with song and the desire to give. Accept these gifts and ourselves in service always. In the name of love we pray together. Amen. And now I'd like to invite up all the children and youth, and Dahlia and Sadak are going to join us as well. Well, hello everybody. We've been listening for quite a while now to some wonderful stories, and we're going to be going downstairs in just a minute, and Dahlia and Sadak are going to join us. Our younger classes are going to be reading a book about friendship between people from two different communities, and then our older classes have about 100 rolls that we need to butter. So that they can go to the soup kitchen in New London tonight. So we have a lot of work to do, but I wanted to share the very little of Arabic that I know, and I thought everyone could say it with me. And it's Salam Alaikum, Salam Alaikum, Salam Alaikum. And that's a way that we can greet one another. So Salam Alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, wa alaikum assalam. Peace be upon you too. I'm really glad being here today. It's like my pleasure. My name is Sadiq. I'm from Palestine, Hebron. And you know, as I said, it's my pleasure being here. And Dahlia, here's Dahlia. Introduce yourself.
Hello, how are you doing today? All right, my name is Dahlia. I am from a place where Jesus was born and raised. So, do you know where is he from, Jesus?
Give her the mic.
Yeah.
There you go.
Israel?
I don't know.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, he is from Bethlehem. Bethlehem is located in Palestine. So, Jesus is from Palestine, the holy place and faithful place for everyone. So, he's from Bethlehem. And I am from Palestine, in city Hebron. It is south of Bethlehem where Jesus was born.
That's perfect, Dahlia. And the message that you told me, like, well, as Muslim, I have a faith that is similar and different. But what we share is like we have stories in Quran and you have stories in the Bible. And what's so beautiful as an English literature student, that's what I learned. We don't just read stories for entertainment, but we read stories because we want to live them. Because we want to teach our children, we want to teach others, and we get inspired by them. So yeah, just it's a message for me and you guys to just read stories, but also live them and try to learn and teach from them. Anything you would like to teach them, Dahlia? Or is there any message?
I would like to read more stories about Palestine. There is many stories. You can search it on Google and watch movies about Palestine and know where Jesus was born. So I highly recommend you, little kids.
Thank you for this opportunity talking with them. And thanks for coming.
Thank you so much to both of you. And we're going to have a song to sing us out.
If anybody asks you who I am, who I
scripture today is from the book of Genesis, chapter 18, verses 1 through 4. The Lord appeared to Abraham by the oaks of Mamre, and as he sat at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day, he looked up and saw 3 people standing near him. And when he saw them, he ran from the tent entrance to meet them and bowed down to the ground, saying, "My Lord, if I find favor with you, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree."
Our next scripture readings are from the book of Job, chapter 14, and then the book of Hebrews. From Job. For there is hope for a tree, if it is cut down, that it will sprout again, and that its shoots will not cease. Though its root grows old in the earth, and its stump dies in the ground, yet at the scent of water it will bud, and put forth branches like a young plant. And then from the book of Hebrews, chapter 13. Let mutual affection continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing that some have entertained angels without knowing it. Here end our readings.
Good morning. Oh, sorry. I'm Melissa. I'm here with community peacemaker teams, and I'm so grateful to be here with all of you this morning. I just want to take a few moments to tell you briefly about our work in Al Khalil, documenting human rights violations by the Israeli military and illegal settlers. So thank you so much for welcoming us today, for desiring to hear the stories that we bring, for opening your hearts and your souls to the work of creative nonviolence and liberating love. I want to thank you on behalf of my colleagues at Community Peacemaker Teams. This is one team here. This is part of the Palestine team. Today my colleagues are working in Palestine, in Colombia, in northern Iraq, in an area called Kurdistan, on Lesbos Island, welcoming migrants seeking a better life, crossing the Aegean Sea on boats, and on this land with Native Americans and First Nations people in Canada who are fighting for their land and human rights. My colleagues are on the US-Mexico border, accompanying migrants who are seeking asylum. Community Peacemaker Teams was founded 35 years ago by people of faith in the United States and Canada who believe deeply in nonviolent resistance to war and violence. CPT puts teams in places of conflict at the invitation of local peacemaking communities. We go into areas where we are invited with communities who are facing situations of lethal conflict. We support and amplify the voices of local peacemakers who are risking injury and death by waging nonviolent direct action to confront systems of violence and oppression. So we accompany people, we advocate, we write reports, we speak to the United Nations, and we are a community that's rooted in deep and diverse spiritual backgrounds and practices. It's my privilege to be here today. I live in Philadelphia, just a few hours by train away from here. So it's much easier for me to speak to you than one of my colleagues. But I want to invite into this room my Palestinian colleagues, Amira, Mona, Shahad, Tartil, Ahmed, and Baha. I just spent a month with them in June. Most of my work is virtual, but I spent a month with them in June, and they told me what they want you to know about their beautiful city of Al Khalil and their work. In my role as the care coordinator at CPT, I'm essentially the chaplain for the organization. It's very hard work that the teams are doing. They're at high risk of experiencing primary and secondary trauma in their work. And so my work is to accompany them and work on healing the trauma and preventing trauma from existing in the first place. And I'm here doing this work because I believe that our liberation is bound up together. Civil rights activist Fannie Lou Hamer said, "Nobody's free until everybody's free," and isn't that true? For many years, I believed this. I believed in collective liberation, believed that my liberation was bound up in another's, but it didn't sink into my bones until I went to Palestine in 2013 as the mother of 2 small children. It was there that I saw that children in Al Khalil couldn't walk to school safely. I saw them pass by settlers who insulted them and threw stones at them. I saw itty-bitty kids treated like criminal suspects every day on the way to school, going through checkpoints and having their little tiny backpacks searched, being asked, "Do you have a weapon? Do you have something sharp?" As if they were immediately thought to be doing something wrong. As a mom, as a parent, you will do anything to protect your children and to make the world in which they will all thrive. And my first experience in Al Khalil was when my soul had the realization that there is no such thing as other people's children. They are the responsibility of all of us. Until each child can stand tall and safe in their own dignity and on their own land, no one is truly free. We are bound together in the struggle against oppression that connects us across the globe. Until the day Palestinian children can walk safely to school, we must struggle together. And until the day that Palestinians of all ages can travel from Hebron to Gaza to Jaffa and put their feet in the ocean, we must struggle. To give you some background on our work in Al Khalil, after the Ibrahimi Mosque massacre, which you heard about, the city was put on a curfew. The checkpoints went up, the mosque was divided, and half of it was given away to Israeli settlers. CPT sent a delegation of people from the United States and Canada into Hebron to see what was going on and to offer solidarity and support. And the next year, we were invited to have a permanent presence in the city by the Hebron Municipal Authority. They wanted foreigners there who could monitor human rights violations and offer unarmed civilian accompaniment. We thought we would be there until Shahada Street opened again, maybe a few months, a year or two. But we're still there to this day because Shahada Street is still closed and H2 is still under Israeli military occupation. So we have maintained a presence in the old city. Our office and apartment are off of Shahada Street. And our team is all Palestinian, with foreigners coming in for up to 90 days at a time, as that's the longest that we can get a visa now. We've had 10 foreign staff who have been denied entry at the borders, both land and airport, because of their work associated with doing human rights work for Palestinians. Our main work in Al Khalil is accompaniment of people, and it's primarily with children. So here's a picture. So we walk children to school. We walk them through checkpoints. We monitor checkpoints each school day, in the morning when kids are going to school, and again in the afternoon on the way home. We meet with school principals and teachers to make sure that they know to call us if soldiers invade the school looking for a particular child, or if they shoot tear gas into the schoolyard. We film when soldiers stop children. We write reports on what happens to school children, and which we share with the United Nations, Amnesty International, Save the Children, and other partners. When children are detained, which unfortunately happens more and more, as you see here, this happened a few blocks from our apartment. When children are detained, we tell soldiers that what they're doing is against international law. We try to get them to release the children. We used to try to physically stop them from getting arrested, but it's no longer safe to do so. We have had many of our staff detained over the last few months, and last year our staff were detained and 2 people were physically abused by soldiers while they were in detention, so we've changed our protocols. But we try to do what we can to keep the kids from being brought into the military bases. This is a picture of 4 young boys being brought into the military base that's near our apartment, and this is near the section that you'll hear Mela talk about as well. So if a child is detained, we stay present with the children, try to stay within eyesight so they know we're there, and speak to them in Arabic, getting their names and telling them that we will contact their parents. We get in touch with the principal of the school so that we can get people down there to witness what's happening and try to get them released. Just a few weeks ago, I can tell you many stories, but just a few weeks ago we had witnessed 2 children aged 7 and 8 who were detained on the first day of school for 4 hours before they were allowed to be released, without access to a bathroom, food, or calling their parents. Since the pandemic, many international monitoring groups have not returned, so there's much more ability for the soldiers and the Israeli settlers to do whatever they want. We also monitor when settlers come into the areas that they're not supposed to be in, and they're usually surrounded by heavily armed soldiers. So we accompany those when those things happen so that we try to keep people safe and take pictures. After many years of doing this accompaniment work and monitoring checkpoints and things like this, we wanted to do something more. Our staff wanted to do something more than just do protective accompaniment. And so we developed a mentoring program with youth. And these are some youth in our apartment, in our office in Al Khalil. Our staff wanted to build the next generation of people who nonviolently resist the occupation. They wanted to work with the kids on something life-giving, to both address the ongoing trauma of living under occupation and also build hope for the young people. And out of this desire, and after talking to other organizations in Al Khalil and many youth in H2, our program called Through Their Lens was born. And here you can see, this is one of the first cohorts of Through Their Lens. They're in our office, and they painted this mural on the wall in our office. So this initiative started during the pandemic, when all of our foreign staff were expelled, and all of a sudden we only had 2 people on staff in the office, and the occupation did not stop for the pandemic. And the 2 staff that were there were Palestinian, and they were trying to keep the work going. And they had the brilliant idea to continue to document the occupation by giving children cameras and showing them how to use cameras. And you can look at our website, it's cpt.org, and look at our YouTube channel to see some of the videos that kids have made, and some of the pictures that they have taken and the stories that they've told. There's another picture of them outside closer to the mosque. So I will be here after this service. Please come talk to me. I can answer any questions. I'll be in the fellowship hall, whatever you call it back there. And please come talk to me. You have the ability to donate with a QR code if you would like to support our initiative of buying a new camera for our staff and new cameras for the kids. So please come talk to me afterwards. And I want to just close with an image to leave you with. In the summer evenings in Al Khalil, around 6 p.m., the heat dies down, and a gentle breeze begins to blow across the city. Most nights I would go up onto the roof of the apartment at this beautiful golden hour. And from my perch on the roof, I could start to see kites appearing above the rooftops. Kites made of black trash bags, some made out of Palestinian flags. And I saw that it was groups of kids on the roofs that were trying to make the kites sail in the breeze. Over and over, they threw the kites into the air, hoping that they would catch a slight breeze and take off. Over and over, the kites fell to the ground. I watched one group of children do this for nearly an hour. And I thought, there's no way my kids would do this. Like, they would just give up after 5 minutes. They would do something else. But these kids continued for almost an hour. And so I really admired their endless patience and their desire to get this kite in the air. And my heart cheered when finally these kids would get a kite that finally took off. And then the kite would soar into the sky, soaring over the barbed wire, over the checkpoints and the soldiers, and over the beautiful families in their homes in this historic city. And so, my friends, I invite us to learn from the steadfastness of children. May we never lose hope. May we each day keep sight of liberation. Throw those kites in the air until they catch. May we be courageous. May we risk. May we act to dismantle the occupation in whatever ways we are called to do so. We each have a role. It may be small, it may be large, but we have a role to play, and it's our duty to find it. Arundhati Roy says, another world is not only possible, she is on her way. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathing. May it be so. May we see in our lifetimes a free Palestine. Thank you.
What are you doing here? We know you always enter from the other side. Why are you here? An Israeli soldier said to my Palestinian friend when we entered the checkpoint to the part of Hebron that's under the direct control of the Israeli military. He didn't have to show his identity card because the cameras already recognized his face and showed to the soldiers his security rating, his family history, and his history of movement. Such facial recognition cameras have already been banned in a number of US states. The EU calls for its prohibition, and Israel's Supreme Court already prohibited them from appearing in Israeli public life. It's clear then that the EU, the USA, and Israel do value the right to privacy and autonomy of their own citizens, but not that of the Palestinians. You cannot go back to the Arab part of Hebron, you are a Jew. An Israeli soldier said to my American Jewish friend who came to visit me in the old city of Hebron. Although he had arrived by Palestinian bus to the Palestinian part of Hebron, he wasn't allowed to go back there. As if, can you not hear me? Okay. As if he would be immediately eaten alive by Palestinians. Do you have Muslims amongst you? They are not allowed to go further. The Israeli soldier said to our tour group when we were having a tour in the old city of Hebron. The Palestinians and Muslims amongst us had to go back, and the rest of us could go on. I should show photos. This is a checkpoint. This is the part where my Jewish friend was returned. Another checkpoint, and this is Shohada Street, which you've heard about now, where Muslims and Palestinians cannot go on. The Netherlands, beautiful country, have a great day. I would always hear when I showed my passport to the soldiers. In Hebron, it became clear to me for the first time, really clear, that it's not because I'm a human being that I'm granted human rights, but it's because of my passport and the absence of any contested religion. For Palestinians, having a passport means the very opposite of being granted human rights. By the sole fact of being a Palestinian, they are only allowed to move within restricted areas. They have to admit their identity in every direction they go. They are watched by cameras in every move they make, and at checkpoints they face humiliation or worse. Only this year, 120 Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank in clashes with Israeli soldiers or settlers, among them 28 children at least. As you heard, I spent 3 months in Hebron. I am a student of philosophy and Middle Eastern studies, and the last month I was in Hebron, I lived in H2, the area that's under the direct control of the Israeli military. I have ambitions in journalism, and I wanted to see the situation for myself. I've been asked today to shorten my talk from 30 minutes to 8 minutes, and as you know, it's easier to write a long letter than a short letter, but I will do my best. I just want to say that it's very hard to do justice to the stories of the Palestinians because there is so much to tell, and please don't let your interest stop here today. Please let it be extended beyond this talk. So I wanted to tell you something about settler violence. In the old city of Hebron, it's a beautiful city. I have one pretty photo, I think. It's a beautiful city, but even the most ignorant tourists cannot deny the fact that the occupation has settled in the very heart of this city. Because if you look above your head, there are nets spread above the streets. And these nets protect the customers of the shops, the shop owners, all the tourists who are walking there. What do they protect them from? from everything that the settlers, who often live on the second floor of these buildings in the old city, throw down. So this could be sticks, stones, broken chairs, broken bottles. And shop owners have a lot to suffer from settler violence. I know one man who became a dear friend of mine. He showed me many videos of settlers attacking shops with stone throwing, and also people living in, families living in technology. Here you see the nets spread above the streets. This is the old city also. Well, here you see settlers who are throwing stones at a shop from my friend. And these are settlers in the old city of Hebron, and this is a settler who is carrying a weapon, which is forbidden for Palestinians, but settlers are allowed to. Apart from the shop owners, also all the families who live next to settlers or close to settlers show more or less the same stories. Usually on Saturdays and also on Jewish holidays, settlers would start attacking their Palestinian neighbors, throwing things down, damaging their cars, swearing at them. One woman I met, Mahmoud, she is a mother of 3 young sons, and she had to repair her windows 3 times the last 2 years because they were ruined by settlers. And also sometimes the settlers throw down rotten food at them and call them dirty Arabs. There is also a story of an old man, 64-year-old man. This is broken pottery of his shop. The person of the shop owner I told you about, unfortunately, after I left Hebron, I learned that his shop was set on fire. Here we see, this is a Palestinian-owned house that's taken over by settlers, and the settlers there protected by many soldiers. So the soldiers would stand on the roof and on the balconies and in front of the houses, and the settlers casually converse with the soldiers, and the soldiers eat ice cream that the settlers have handed to them. And do notice that this is in the West Bank, in the occupied West Bank, what should belong to the Palestinians, and yet they are taking over their houses and raising the Israeli flags, whereas Palestinian flags are taken down. This is Shohada Street, as you can see, completely empty, almost completely empty, except for a settler who is conversing with a soldier at a checkpoint. This street is forbidden for Palestinians. These are settlers inside the old city, soldiers inside the old city. This man I want to tell you briefly about. His family's land lies in between the 2 settlements of Hebron, Kiryat Arba and Givat Havot, and they are surrounded by more or less 7,000 settlers, and his family's land has been subjected. His family and his land has been subjected to a number of settler crimes. The United Nations documented that the family has been subject to shooting, throwing stones, breaking into their homes, damaging their homes, stealing livestock and stealing crops. And according to the family, all the 7 sons and 3 daughters have been hospitalized due to settler attacks. And the latest was this man, Abdul Karim Al-Ja'bari. We found him with his head covered in cast and his arm covered in cast. He had been attacked by a settler while he was harvesting the olives on his own land. And he was cut with an iron bended pipe that at the outside was as sharp as a knife. He was cut 3 times in his head, and he broke his arm when he was defending himself. He needed 30 stitches. And on some days after the attack, he was called to file a complaint at the Israeli Civil Administration, and he pointed out exactly which settlers were involved and what they had done during the attack. And the police seemed to recognize that they believed his story, and that the settler should be punished. And yet the next day, after spending 1 night in jail, all the settlers were released without charges. And the Israeli human rights organization Yesh Din reports that 90% of settler violence goes unpunished. Palestinians are trapped, and all my Palestinian friends showed this or described this in different ways, but many of them mentioned the ocean. 71% of the world is covered with ocean, and yet Palestinians don't have access to it. Instead, they face checkpoints in every direction they go, and they need permits if they want to go to Jerusalem, to their ancestral homelands, maybe to their family. And such permits are arbitrary. If you can get them, it's an arbitrary system. And even if you are handed one, even if you're granted one, they can be easily revoked. And also, when Palestinians in the West Bank want to get out of the West Bank, they face this wall, which Palestinians rightly call, and we too call the wall of apartheid. And for those of you who have been in Germany, in Berlin, where you saw the remnants of a wall that we once had in Europe, that we now call the wall of shame, because it tore whole families apart and it impeded the freedom of movement of everyone living around it. And I wonder, how long are we going to have double standards? Silence is complicity, and the increasing number of settlers moving into the West Bank, the unconditional support they receive from the Israeli military, even in their criminal behavior, and the royal benefits they receive from the Israeli government suggest that settlers, even though we might like to believe it, are not the outcasts at the extreme end of the Israeli spectrum, but rather at the celebrated forefront of Israel's wish to colonize even more of the land than it already did. 78% of the land of historic Palestine that it took over in 1948 was never enough, and it seems clear that Israel wants to colonize the other 22% too and evict the Palestinians from this land. And if we remain silent, I'm pretty sure that we will find ourselves on the wrong side of history. I know that facing the situation in Palestine also means facing ourselves. I come from the Netherlands, from Europe. This is the United States of America. Our histories are rife with colonialism, settler colonialism. We have a present of neo-colonialism, and Israel was partially a colonial project to secure Western hegemony overseas, and it was also a way to make up for a past of relentless Jewish persecution. I know that history is painful, but the history of the past cannot justify the pain of the Palestinian present. Anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism, and I think we can all agree that Israeli policies are not and cannot be based on Jewish values. We should be able to criticize Israel for its blatant disrespect of the human rights of the Palestinians living inside the West Bank and Gaza, as well as those Palestinians living inside 1948 borders. We should be able to criticize Israel for demanding its right to self-determination while it's constantly undermining the right to self-determination of the Palestinian people. And we should be able to criticize our governments for pretending to value human rights while it's constantly aiding a regime that's undermining the human rights of Palestinians on a daily basis. In 1997, the year I was born, Nelson Mandela said, "We know too well that our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinians." And I'm sad it has to be said again today, but it has to be said again today. Like Melissa mentioned, no one is free until all are free. The earth is round, we cannot escape each other, we cannot dispose of each other, we have to live together, and I think this can be a beautiful thing.
I have to say that having been briefly detained in one of those gates myself in Hebron about 8 or 9 years ago, I felt rage. Had I been a child, I would have felt terrified. Would you join me now in prayer? God of justice, God of truth, God of mercy, God of the ages, we give you thanks this day for the stories Melissa and Mela, Sadek and Dahlia have shared with us. We thank you for their courage and their resilience and strength. From their hearts, they have spoken to us and to our hearts. We thank you for all the volunteers worldwide who serve on Christian peacemaker teams. The risks they are willing to take make each one of us safer. As Sadek and Dahlia, Mela and Melissa return to their lives in the places they call home, we ask that you would remind us to do all that we can to support a world of justice and mercy, even from this place of relative safety and peace that we call home. There is much work to be done to make this the world our faith asks of us. Let us not tire or flag in zeal, for the journey ahead of us is critical. We depend upon one another all across this complex world, each nation dependent upon all nations ultimately, each individual dependent upon all the world's people ultimately. Guide us in the way forward. Keep hope alive in all our souls. And let it be that Sadek and Dahlia, Melissa and Mela make their journey home in safety made stronger by the friendships they have made here. All this we pray in the name of a God who is known by many names, a God who speaks the universal language of peace and justice. Amen.
Final word today belongs not to me and not to David, but to Emily Dickinson. David will offer us benediction.
Well, since we didn't plan it that way, but Emily Dickinson has played a prominent role in all of our different venues. It would be appropriate that we have our close of our service today, our benediction and the words from Emily Dickinson that mean a lot to me and hopefully to you as well. One thing, do the Lord forever you hear the words, lead us not into temptation. And there's a real temptation after hearing what we've done today, not to go out there and rise up and do what needs to be done. Rather than retreat, we say, who am I to do everything that God uses justice that we have heard about? So that's what we need to listen and listen. So I'm going to ask you to stand. And when you hear the word rise, I want you to rise up on your tiptoes. Put your hands up in the air. Are we ready? We never know how high we are, but we are called to rise. And then if we are true to the land, our sections touch the skies. One more time. We never know how high we are, till we are called to rise. And then if we are true to plan, our statures touch the skies. The arrows that we recite would be a normal thing. Deny ourselves the Cupid's war, to fear, for fear to be a king or a queen. Thank you. Remember those words, that the human spirit is filled with great dignity, and we have within ourselves to do what needs to be done.
The party, by the way, is this way.